Hey, welcome. Welcome to another quick episode, Lessons on Learning, quick-fire informal videos where we explore just how people learn and how we can utilize that as educators and trainers to create the best learning experience for the students in our room. Hey, what if I was to tell you that regardless of how much effort and time and energy and creativity you put into planning and delivering your content, you might be really surprised how little your learners actually remember. In fact, there's a lot of studies to suggest that learners really only remember the very beginning and the very end. Often we remember what we hear first and what we hear last. There are some other things, emotional connections, heightened surprises, stuff like that. But for the most part, if you were to connect with your learners 3, 4, 5 weeks after their training session and ask them to tell you what they remembered, you might be surprised about how little they actually retained. And look, that's got nothing to do with your content or how you delivered it. It's just how the human brain stores information and our own innate abilities to be able to recall that information. Often as well, at the end of our classes, it can be a little surprising when we ask our learners, what did you learn? What do you remember? And they come up with things that we think to ourselves, really? Is that what you learned? Is that what you got from all of that? I mean, at the end of the day, it's none of our business. It's their learning. But I know with me personally, I've spent a lot of time and effort and energy putting together some really transformational education to people, or at least what I thought was transformational. And then at the end, I've said, what did you like best? What did you learn? And they said, I learned this, that, and the other. And it was something that perhaps to me didn't seem particularly important or relevant. And I think, I wish you'd have grasped something else instead. The point is this: again, it's not necessarily our fault. It's up to our learners what it is that they learn. However, and this is the point of today's video, it's up to us as educators to make sure they recognize what they have learned and the value of the things that they have learned. And so, again, I'll go back to, I've mentioned this on my socials a lot of time. People think that delivering the content is where the learning lives. It's not. The delivery is just simply where the information lives. Very often, the real learning lives in the reflection. Giving our learners the opportunity to just sit and reflect and to journal and maybe to ponder some pertinent questions about what it is that they learned and what effect it had on them. And it's amazing how many educators don't plan for this. And what they do is they plan a whole, session and they jam pack it with lots and lots of content. So many fall into that usual trap of creating far too much content for the time that they have. Things always look easier on paper than they do in real life. And of course, then when we start to deliver this information, we start to get sidetracked. There's conversations and questions. Things take a little bit longer than we thought. Before we know it, we're 3/4 of the way through the day with, sort of 3/4 of the content still left to deliver. We find ourselves running out of time and rushing towards the end. And one of the first things to go as we're rushing towards the end is this time for reflection, or as me and my partners call it, debriefing, or summarizing, or whatever it is that you want to call it. But getting people to really think about and resonate and reflect on what it is that they learned. So I'd like to give you a 4-step methodology today of some questions that you could ask your learners. And I promise you, if you ask them these questions, and more importantly, give them a couple of minutes to reflect and maybe write down some answers and then share the answers with you, I promise it'll really help to not only embed the learning and really kind of drive home the content that you shared, but it'll also help them to really stop, pause, and recognize just what they've learned and what value it had for them. So let's get started straight away on what we can talk about. And I want you to have a look at the screen here. We're gonna write some things up there. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to make time to ask your learners some questions that will help them to summarize. Now, forgive me if you're watching in the USA. We're doing the English spelling of summarize here. No Z's or Z's. So we'll get them to summarize. So ask them questions. Okay, so what happened? What did you do when you arrived here? What was the first thing that we talked about? What did we talk about then? What did we do just before we went to coffee break? Can you remember what we did before lunch? What did we do when we came back after lunch? What was the next thing that we did? And then what did we do? And what have we just finished talking about now? So actually chronologically walk them through the day. Give them a couple of minutes to do something that we call write, pair, share, which is where, if you don't know what that is, just drop a comment below and I'll do a video on write, pair, share. But get them to reflect on what it is, get them to go back in time and spend 2 or 3 minutes just in their own headspace, remembering what it is that they did throughout the day, and then get them to share it with a couple of people or share it with a partner, or even if it's just a one-on-one, share it with you and find out what it is that they can remember. Listen carefully, because what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to ask questions that reminds them of the information that's missing from the gaps. So they say, oh, we came in at 9 o'clock and we did this, that, and the other. Then we did something else, and then we did this, that, and the other. And you're looking for areas where perhaps they might have forgotten something that happened. And then you can say, okay, what do you remember about this? What about when we talked about that? So without giving too much away, give them the kind of questions that helps them to remember some information that they might have missed out. And what you're wanting to do is spend 2 or 3 minutes just basically chronologically putting the day together. Remember, people remember most what they hear first and what they hear last. So this is about getting them to fill in the bits in between. So it's important that they summarize, not you. Ask them the kind of questions that gives you the answers that you're looking for. Summarize, okay? Summarize. The next thing that we're going to do, and again, spend a little bit of time on this if you can as well. I want you to ask people a very simple question, during this day, what have you learned? What have you learned? Or what are you learning could be another one. It doesn't really matter how you word it. You're just going to say, what have you learned, or what are you learning right now? And remember, this is a different question. It's a different question to this one. So you're not asking for a history lesson again. For instance, let's imagine that you're teaching something about, let's imagine that you're teaching haircutting, for instance, and you ask them to summarize, and they said, oh, we did this particular haircut or this particular job. And then you ask them, what did you learn? And they say, oh, we learned how to do that. That's okay, but drill a little deeper and get them to try and recognize the things that they learned, the key points that they realized, little aha moments, something that they recognized, or something where they can say, oh yeah, I learned this. So go into a little bit more detail. What have you learned as a result of everything that you summarized for me? And again, do the same thing. Get them to reflect on it for a few minutes, spend a couple of minutes, get them to write something down. If there's multiple people in the class, get them to share it with each other. Now, the next question kind of hangs on to this. It's like, I suppose if that's question 2, this is question 2B. And so what it is that you're asking, and it's an important question, this is about value. It's about the effect that the learning has had on them. It's about getting them to recognize the value of what it is that they learned. And the question that you're going to ask is, I'm just going to sort of summarize this. Where are you now? And what that means is, where are you now compared to where you were before this training session started? Let me repeat that. Where are you now compared to where you were before this training session started? So I think, Tony Robbins has a great question that he asks in a lot of his seminars. He says, what do you now know that before you did not? So, that can be another thing. So what are you able to do? What can you understand? What task can you perform? What challenge can you get over? What problem can you solve? What results can you now achieve that 6 hours ago you couldn't? So you're asking them to really imagine, to think, to visualize, and eventually to verbalize the transformation that took place from when they started your training session to now that they finished it. You get into, they really recognize, well, before I didn't know how to write on a YouTube video. I didn't know how to write on the screen, and now I do. Now I can write words on my YouTube screen. Before, I didn't know how to summarize my content, and now I do. Before, I didn't know how to make an omelette, and now I can make different types of omelettes, whatever. But you're asking them to really recognize, where are you now versus where were you before? And this is really going to help them to really recognize value. And what you're looking for here more than anything else is the transformational quality. You're asking them to recognize and acknowledge the transformation that's taken place, even if it's only small, throughout your training session. And once you've got that, you can drill down on this as much as you like. You can ask them to put it into a sentence. You can ask them to put it into a couple of words. If you want to, you could even ask them to try and put it into one word. But you're getting them to recognize their transformation, and then you're really going to help them celebrate that achievement, because celebrating it is going to associate it with positive feelings, positive emotions. It's going to build confidence for when they get to try it again. Because remember, whatever it is that they now know that before they did not, the next time they come to implement it, it's still going to be relatively new. So it's still going to feel a little scary. So get them to really celebrate it, really kind of visualize it, verbalize it, affirm it, really anchor it in so that they implement this information. The quicker they implement it, the more firmly they'll adopt it and keep using it. It makes sense? Good. And then last but not least, you've gone into the past here. You've kind of looked at where are you, you've looked at what happened. You're looking into the past, and now you're looking right into the present. Where are you right now? And so you're really present. So you've looked at the past. Now you're looking at the present. The next thing, that's it. You're going to look into the future. So you're going to just, simply ask them, what next? What action are you going to create? And this is really about creating or committing to an action. So what next? What comes next? You're going to just commit to some kind of action. And again, get them to think about this, get them to reflect on it. I mean, one of the things that I do is I always hand out index cards, and I get them to write down their action plan on an index card. I get them to write it down, and I use an index card because that way it's let me just make that a little smaller. That's it. Because that way it doesn't get too detailed. If they can get it onto the back of a like an index card, like an A5 index card, or an what was that, like 4x5 inch index card, something like that. But if they can get it onto the back of an index card, it really helps them to bullet point and summarize what their action plan is. So what's next for you? What action will you now take? And then get them to be really specific. From now on, I will commit to making at least one omelette every week. Get them to commit an action, something that's really measurable. From now on, I will do this, and I will start at this date, and I will repeat it this many times. So make sure that you create some accountability into that action plan. Get them to share it verbally. Better still, get them to write another copy and swap it with other learners in the group. Get them to post about it on social media. Like with any action, any commitment, the more people you tell, the more likely you are to follow through with that commitment. So do the same thing with these people. Get them to commit something. At the very least, commit to themselves, but ideally commit to somebody else, or commit to the public, or commit to you, if nothing else. And the more they commit, the more likely they are to do it. And now of course, now you're going into the future. So you've gone into the past, you've summarized, you're helping them to remember what happened, and you're helping them with their recall. The more they recall something, the easier it gets to remember it. Always remember, on a side note, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that our memory is not the problem. We can remember, our memory holds on to a lot of things. It's just recalling those memories that's the challenge. Then you're going to go into present tense. What are you learning? What have you learned right now? Where are you right now compared to where you were before? You're looking at the transformational aspect. You're getting them to associate some real value to what it is that they learn. So you're in present tense. And then last but not least, you're moving into the future. You're getting them to visualize how they're going to use this information to make a commitment. What kind of difference will it make for your life? How will it help you? How will it benefit you? Who will you benefit with this information? So you're getting them to go forward forward into the future and really visualize future success with the information that you've shared. Look, I hope that helps. If you've got any questions about what we've talked about, if there's anything you don't understand, just drop a comment into the video comments below. If you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, or share it with some friends, or maybe tag a friend who you think might benefit from this. I don't publicize this channel too much, and so it's a kind of like a small group. If you like it, keep coming back and tell some of your friends about it, and let's see if we can all benefit from it. And again, if there's anything that you want me to do a video on, anything that you're interested in, if you've got a question or a challenge that you'd like to learn about, drop a comment as well, and I'll do a video on that. Okay, so look, hope that's been helpful. In the meantime, thank you very much. Again, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, tag your friends, and I will see you soon on another Lessons in Learning. All right, take care, my friends. Bye-bye.